So I'm going to start with a question. Can you point to where you think God lives? I'm seeing a lot of fingers pointing up, and some fingers pointing every which way. But for those of you who say God lives up there, I think you're absolutely right. I think our tradition often tells us that God lives in the high places. God lives on mountaintops, or in the clouds, or in the sky beyond the clouds. These are definitely places where God can be found. This week's parasha opens with God giving instructions to raise up a menorah in the Mishkan, the traveling sanctuary that the Israelite people took with them through the wanderings in the wilderness. In doing so, in telling the Israelites to raise up a menorah, God was commanding us to create a beacon of light in the darkness. Placed right at the center of the Israelites' encampment, the menorah will count the days of the week, and it will give a focal point to the camp, and it provides a unifying symbol for these 12 separate tribes traveling together. In other words, the menorah will help our people mark time, help us define space, and help us coalesce as a single people. But this parasha isn't named Parashat Menorah. No, this is Parashat Beha'alotecha. It is the portion of your raising up. In this portion, God is telling us to raise up light. But in some ways, we are also being told to raise up our eyes, our attention, our hearts, and our senses of possibility. We're invited to raise up, to encounter God. The beautiful Moorish revival sanctuary that we are in here at Central Synagogue has offered a similar invitation to raise up ever since it opened in 1872. When our modestly sized downtown congregation moved uptown in the 1870s, it did so in grand style. Unlike the homes of most of our congregants at the time, even those not living on the crowded Lower East Side, they lived in homes with low ceilings, small windows, little light, or almost no air circulating. Whereas this sanctuary audaciously filled its interior with light and with open space. As those early congregants sat in these pews at floor level, and even as they sat on the balconies, their attention would have naturally been drawn upward to the star-spangled ceiling, to the gas-lit at the time chandeliers, and to these cubits and cubits of empty air above them. Here, they could have imagined, is a space worthy of the Holy One's presence. And down here on the floor, they would have known their own insignificance, dwarfed in the face of the infinite. But to be present in such a wide open space, filled only by God up above, it would have felt miraculous. Starting from the time that she arrived at Central Synagogue for the first time 16 years ago, Rabbi Angela Buchdahl, then our senior cantor, she has worked another more modern miracle. She and the clergy team around her have helped make this soaring space feel intimate. Not just once, but every single time we enter it. We no longer feel dwarfed by the height of our sanctuary, nor do we feel insignificant under the weight of its grand design and its proud history. Through our music and our prayers and the words of our clergy, this miracle working turned this space from intimidating to inviting. Rabbi Buchdahl, Cantor Mutlu, and all of the amazing clergy of Central Synagogue has made us feel as if this space is no larger than the community that fills it. It has become a truly shared space, one measured on a human scale. But since we unveiled Where Lines Converge in November, we've also been reminded that in addition to being intimate, this space also soars. In addition to it being measured on a personal and human scale, it is also majestic. This beautiful installation of 6 airy columns by Nell Breyer has risen above our heads here in the sanctuary for these last 7 months. It's a sculpture and it's a dance, this installation of string and brass. This work of art has changed our sanctuary in ways both subtle and profound. It has made us look up, it has raised us up, and it has helped us encounter God. Where Lines Converge resonates with the full span of our Jewish tradition. It reminds us how God cracked open the darkness to reveal shafts of light on the very first day of creation. This work recreates the pillars of cloud and fire that accompanied our ancient ancestors as they wandered the wilderness of Sinai between enslavement and freedom, just as we hear in this week's portion. This work stands in for the columns of the ancient temples in Jerusalem, guarding the entrance to God's home on earth. This gives body to Shekhinah, the presence of God that reaches down to us in comfort. And these 6 columns remind us of the 7-branched menorah in the wilderness, the light that we raised up to connect our people to time, to one another, and to God. In her statement about this installation, Nell Breyer wrote that it invites viewers to consider the enormity of activity overhead, the vibrations, light, color, air, temperatures, sounds, matter, and movements within this space and beyond it. Nell has asked us to raise up our eyes and see this space in a new way, or in an old way made to feel entirely new again. Nell has asked us to feel something when we walk into this space, to feel like a small piece of a much larger universe. And I do feel small when I walk into the sanctuary and see these lines of string and brass anchored to the ceiling, but pointing towards the heavens. But feeling small is not the same as feeling insignificant, because the vibrations and movements of these strings, they pick that up from us and from our presence here. We impact this work as much as it impacts us. It has been an honor and a pleasure to share this artwork with you, our central community, since we installed it last November. But the time is coming to say goodbye. Where Lines Converge will be on view for the next 2 weeks only, coming down after Shabbat on the 23rd and 24th of this month. I hope over these next 2 weeks, you will take one last opportunity to look up, to raise up your eyes to the heavens, and to take in the gorgeous grandeur of this space. For these last 7 months, Where Lines Converge has reminded us that while this sanctuary is an intimate space, it is also soaring. This work of art has reinflated the personal scale into something of majesty. This is a place where we can look across at eye level and see our community, where we can hear one another's voices and songs. And it is also a place where we can look up, a space which raises our innermost desires and prayers to the very heavens. In this week's parashah, we are commanded to raise 7 branches on our people's menorah. If you look up, you see that there are 6 branches to this work, 6 columns of light connecting us to the universe above. The light here is bright. but it isn't yet complete. Where is the seventh branch? I believe this work invites each one of us to become that branch, to fill in the gap, to bring our own light into this community and into the world. You are the seventh branch. And you are. And you are. And you are. And I am. We are the light that completes this menorah. Looking up can inspire us, and it can move us. But in our raising up, let us remember that we don't need to literally look up in order to encounter God. We only need to look around at the people who surround us in this intimate and majestic space in order to find a spark of the divine. We only need to look around us to see the light. Shabbat Shalom.